Today on With the First Pick, it's never too early for a mock draft, so we're going to do just that. 5 days into June, 92 days to the start of the NFL season, and Ran 79 days to the start of the college football season. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Ran Carthon. This is episode 265, and while you may not care, Ran, there's some draft sickos out there. There are 322 days to the 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh, PA. By the way, if you missed it, thanks to our guy Ran here. We had not one but two NFL general managers on the podcast earlier this week. Browns GM Andrew Berry and Jags GM James Gladstone joined us to talk about the blockbuster Travis Hunter trade, what it's like being a young GM, and a bunch of other stuff. So please check that out wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Rand, a couple quick reminders here before we get into it in this way too early mock draft. Number one, the draft order, as we're about to see it, is determined by FanDuel Super Bowl odds, but in reverse order. So channel your why do you have my team picking so high anger into something else, like, say, point two. This mock draft is less about team needs, more about how I got these players ranked based on their 2024 tape. And in that sense, it's more of a watch list than a mock draft. Either way, Rand, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing great, man. Just like you said, just coming off of that James Gladstone and Andrew Berry interview. Can't thank those guys enough. It was a great time getting to, hear their thoughts and opinions. And especially for them opening up the door and letting us behind the curtain on the trade from pick 2 to 5. So that was cool, man.
Yeah, we got producer Sharon with us. And by the way, producer Sharon, I think we broke made podcast history by having two GMs on at once, which was awesome. Again, thanks to Rand, who worked with both those guys, and also talking about that trade, which is fantastic. All right, this is going to be a welcome to the jungle or Paradise City style mock draft. What are we doing here?
We'll go Paradise City. We'll keep it light for right now. Welcome to the jungle. It means we're all in, and it's way too early for that. So let's just go Paradise City.
Welcome to the jungle. That's all I got. All right, here we go. That's all you want, too, by the way. All right, picking first, reverse Super Bowl odds as ordered by FanDuel, the New Orleans Saints. I got them taken, and incidentally, this young man's father is the OC now, Doug Nussmeier, for New Orleans and Kellen Moore. I got him taking Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback out of LSU. And Rand, had he come out last year, he probably would have been a first-round pick. I only had one quarterback in round one, as remember. And the thing about Nussbus that I loved, the first half of the season, he was slinging it. You saw a lot of Joe Burrow in the way he played. The second half of the season felt like he was trying to do too much. And you saw a little bit of New England's version of Mac Jones. And that's not exactly where you want to be after year one Mac Jones anyway. So I think if he can corral the mistakes, corral the unnecessary turnovers, either in the pocket or forcing the ball down the field, he has a legit chance to be QB1, with the understanding, and I wrote about this in the mock draft, that I'm just assuming, and you and I have talked about this before, that Arch Manning's just going to return to Texas. Let's start there. So I don't have him going to this mock draft, so you may be disappointed. But I think I'm starting there. Otherwise, is Garrett Nussmeier your QB1 as we sit here on June 5th?
Yeah, and with that same caveat, as long as Arch Manning isn't in it, then Nussmeier would be my QB1. He was a guy I started studying last year. When I was with the Titans, and even went into LSU for a school visit to see him practice and watch him work, and came away impressed with him. You talked about, watching him throw it around a little bit. You saw a little bit of Joe Burrow and then some of Mac Jones. My two comps, and I like to use in size comparable as well as, just overall skill set. And I saw a kind of a mixture of Brock Purdy is when it looks right. And then I saw some Baker Mayfield, in there as well. And that's kind of what you alluded to talking about later in the season. But we're talking about a guy that can process, a guy that can make some wild throws and put, ball placement. And he just has that certain moxie about him. And man, how cool would it be if he ended up playing for his dad and his dad was his OC?
Hey, let me ask this about Nussbus, I guess I should call him. He has athleticism, but he's more a traditional pocket passer. And unless it feels like you're a Joe Burrow type, that's a little more difficult sell as a first overall pick, top 5 pick. Are you okay with the fact that he's not a crazy athlete in space?
Yeah, I'm okay with it because, again, at the end of the day, you have to be able to stand in the pocket and process and play quarterback. And let's be real, Father Time is undefeated. So you're not going to be able to be a runaround guy for 15, 16 years in the league. Right. At some point in your career, as we see in basketball with LeBron, as we saw with the evolution of Michael Jordan, your game is going to have to evolve as you get older. And for a quarterback, at some point, you're going to have to stand in the pocket, process, and play the quarterback position.
And just so you guys know, if you're listening and watching, we'll be circling back talking about every one of these players and then some when we do our summer scouting, probably later this month or early July. So if you don't hear everything you need to hear about Nuss Bus and anyone else, just be patient with us and we'll get to them in the next few weeks, no doubt about it. All right, number 2, Cleveland Browns are on the clock. Reverse Super Bowl odds, just a reminder. I had him taking Caden Proctor off the tackle out of Alabama. So unofficially 6'7", 369. Enormous frame, no kidding, and wingspan. Also, really good athlete. I thought he plays with power. Again, not surprising there, but also agile in space as both a run blocker and in pass protection. And I'll ask you this, Ran, because here's my comp for him. It's a young man you know quite well because you drafted him. J.C. Latham, but 2 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier. That sort of type of player. Does that hit close to home in terms of how you viewed him? And in general, what are your thoughts on Caden Proctor?
Yeah, he's a freak. He's a freak. He's just, like you said, a big, large man. And if he can't beat you with athleticism, then you have to find a way to run around him, which is going to be a problem. But yeah, I can see the J.C. Latham comparison in terms of athleticism. I would go out on a limb and say that Proctor probably bends a little bit better than J.C. But can you imagine if the Browns draft him and then they have DeJuan Jones on the other side? They'll have 2 of the biggest tackles ever in the history of football.
What's the best way to beat a DeJuan Jones and a Caden Proctor given their athleticism and size? Is it a speed rusher, like a pure speed rusher? Is it a power rusher? Or you just have to find, you're talking about blitzing?
You just got to have a guy that can mix it up. I mean, it's really just that simple because if it's just speed, they got the length. And if it's power, they have the size.
All right, next up. Number 3 overall here in the New York Jets on the clock. Had him taking T.J. Parker, the edge rusher out of Clemson. Long frame on tape. I said think of James Pierce Jr. Just watched him on tape. He wins with both speed and power. He can play at the point of attack in terms of the run game and really high motor player. I got some Mike Green vibes from watching him play, and he was one of my favorite players to watch over the summer thus far.
Yeah, same. Just a natural rusher athlete, can get around, can make plays. Like this dude's upside and really excited to see him this season.
All right, next up, pick 4 for the New York Giants here. Spencer Fano, offensive tackle out of Utah. This was a lot of fun. I didn't know who Spencer Fano was, so I turned the tape on. I thought he's a technician in both pass protection and against the run. Played in a primarily zone scheme and fit in it perfectly because of that athleticism that he has. What do you think about Spencer Fano? Have you had a chance to watch him yet?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. He'll be perfect, as a tackle in a outside zone type scheme. Just his ability to be able to cut off from the backside, and do those things. My only issue with him is his body structure and how is he going to be able to play with power or withstand power. So that'll be a question for me.
No, that's a good point as well, and we'll find out this season. But he was certainly fun watching. Finally, number 5 here before we take our first break. TJ's teammate here, TJ Parker's teammate, Peter Woods, defensive lineman out of Clemson. Tennessee Titans here picking at 5th. Again, reverse Super Bowl odds. Plays with leverage, power, low center of gravity, strong hands. He can throw offensive linemen around, shed blocks quickly, and get into the backfield. All the things you want in a defensive lineman. What do you think of Peter Woods?
I mean, it looked great getting off the bus. If you're the Titans, have Sweat. Him and Jeff Simmons, getting off the bus. And then having a guy like him, you can mix and match your matchups with Jeff and with Sweat. And then those two together, just being able to move guys around and give you some interior pass rush.
So unofficially 6'3", 315. This Clemson team is legit. They're going to have 4, 5, maybe 6 guys go in the first round by the time it's all said and done. So that's top 5 in the books. 2 Clemson guys already off the board, 1 quarterback. We got 4 more quarterbacks to go. I'll give you a little sneak peek into that as we get through this thing. But let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to hit picks 6 through 12, starting with a guy that Ran has already decided to call, make him an unofficial Carthon. We'll talk about the next member of the Carthon family right after this. All right, Ran. 1 through 5 in the books. The Way Too Early mock draft is on CBSSports.com if you're dying to read it. Next up at pick 6. Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock. Reverse Super Bowl odds, just to remind you. And I had them taking Caleb Downs, safety at Ohio State. And here's my comp for him, because he was a lot of fun to watch. And this is maybe a crazy time comp, because he has been hyped up pretty much a lot this offseason. I don't think too much, for being honest. Troy Polamalu, that's who I went with. I love Malachi Starks last year, as did you. I had Caleb Downs ranked higher than Malachi did in terms of where he is in my draft order right now. Athletically, I think he's closer to Nick Emanwari, the second-round pick of the Seattle Seahawks, than he is to Malachi Starks, who's an insane athlete. And I think he is going to be a difference maker at the next level, even though he plays, quote-unquote, the safety position, which may not be as sexy as cornerback or edge rusher or quarterback. What do you think about Caleb Downs?
I'll just say this much, and I'm not quite through the list as much as you are, just in terms of having seen these guys. But so far on my big board, he is the second highest graded player on my board, and I'll just leave it at that, of the guys I've seen. So I'll just leave it at that.
And you didn't even call him Mr. Carthon yet. So Caleb Downs Carthon, it didn't even leave your lips. By the way, you know who his brother is?
Roman and Reese, my sons.
And also Josh Downs, the wide receiver out of UNC. So I didn't know that either until I was looking up his history. So obviously he has the pedigree in his background. Alabama transfer who, had he come out, were he able to come out in the 2024 draft class, he'd have been a top 32 pick all day long. All right, next up, number 7. Carolina Panthers on the clock. And this is another guy that I really liked a lot. I'm interested to hear your thoughts about Francis Mawinga, the tackle out of Miami. Road grader, earth mover in the run game, enormous size, really good athlete, I thought, for that size. Plays with an edge, which is what you want to see sometimes from offensive linemen who proclaim that they're smarter than the defensive linemen they're going up against, and sometimes they don't seem to have that edge. That is not the case with Mawinga. And my comp for him, in terms of the way in which he played the game, was Tully Fuaga, who was the first-round pick of the Saints a few years ago, right tackle in college, played left tackle last year. We'll see where he ends up now they've drafted Kelvin Banks Jr. there. What do you think of Francis Mawinga out of the U?
Love the way he plays. Like you said, love the physicality. And he was a guy that when we were at the Miami Pro Day, I was able to see him in person and get up on him. And do I think he can play tackle? Yeah, I think he'll be fine as a right tackle, but I think this guy can be an all-pro guard just by looking at his body. You talk about a guy who's like just well-proportioned, put together. And like you said, the physicality and just the ability to move people off the ball, like it's impressive.
Let me ask you about that, because I struggle with determining who should be moved inside or outside based on the way they played. You drafted Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern, who was a left tackle in college, and he made the seamless transition, at least from the outside looking in, to guard. Are there similarities between him and Mawinga, or is this a different conversation?
I think it's a different conversation, because I think Peter was a little better athlete. And again, and we talk about it all the time when we joke about it, but there's some seriousness to in terms of playing with length. Right. And then if you look at Peter's body structure, like Peter, I want to say he measured in like just maybe right at 6'4", even or a tad above 6'4". So not only are you lacking height, but you're lacking length, as well. And I think that may come into play with this guy here. But again, just can he play right tackle? Yeah, I'm sure he can. Just like I think in a pinch, could Peter play tackle for you? Yeah. But I think to maximize these guys' skill set, I think if this guy was your guard, we're talking about a Pro Bowl level guard.
And that's the other thing to keep in mind. Like Tyler Booker went 12th overall as a guard. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to fall out of the first round or won't be one of the best players in the draft if you have to move positions from sexy position, tackle, inside to guard, for example. All right, next up, 8th overall in this way too early mock draft, Indianapolis Colts are on the clock. I had him taking Drew Aller. And we can have the conversation about what that means for Anthony Richardson. But in terms of Drew Aller specifically, I thought had he come out in the 2024 draft, he had a chance to be a first-round pick because of the physical tools. I mean, physically, the height, the weight. He's a really good athlete, has a big arm. I just wanted to see him to take the restraints off. It felt like he was playing with a governor at times, and he just wasn't ripping balls that maybe he should rip or is going to need to rip at the next level, playing safe. So hopefully he's able to open that up. And if we are able to see more of that, I think he's an easy pencil in as a first-round pick.
No, same. But and I'll follow that up with I'm not so sure how much the Penn State offense will allow you to just open it up and let it rip, right? Because I just think if you think about the traditional Penn State offense, it's never been a high-powered open up. It's just been more traditional, run heavy, run oriented, run centric. And I think he plays into a little bit of that. Whereas, we were talking about it off air with producer Sharon, when it came time to have to make a play with your quarterback, you saw that he felt a little bit of that pressure, which led to those late turnovers, which ultimately cost him the game.
Sharon is talking in my ear that you're throwing him under the bus. Sharon, you got to own it, man. All right, next up, pick 10 here. Antonio Williams, the wide receiver out of Clemson. Miami Dolphins are on the clock here. And again, we can have the conversation about what it means. Tyreek, what does that mean in Miami for him? They have Waddle, of course, but they don't have a lot after that. But in terms of Antonio Williams, the player out of Clemson, he was targeted 103 times last year. Did have 8 drops, but he consistently wins off the line of scrimmage. He's against physical cornerbacks, and he's quote-unquote undersized. He gets open to all 3 levels, legit separation, all the things that you want in a wide receiver who can also play outside. He can play in the slot. And Randy has the punt return ability as well, which sometimes we don't talk about when trying to grade these guys out as wide receivers especially. So he does a little bit of everything. Another Clemson guy that we're having a first-round conversation about. So I like the idea of him going in the first round. I also love the idea of him potentially going to Miami if they have to fill up some needs there in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, and if again, we talked about it with Matthew Golden going to Green Bay, similar system in Miami where they're very specific of what they're looking for in their X and their Z and their F. And so I can understand and hear the fit and why he would be there. But like you said, that punt return value in these wide receivers and other positions is always going to be key because it's the more you can do. And you mentioned, where they're going to be with Tyreek moving forward. So that adding a receiver here to give Tua yet another weapon makes sense.
By the way, I got so ahead of myself making fun of producer Sharon that I left out pick number 9. Also the U where producer Sharon went to get his master's. So I got to circle back and get the number 9 pick where the Cleveland Browns were again on the clock. And this is the other pick from the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is a reminder to let you know to go watch the podcast that Ran and I did with Andrew Berry, Browns GM, and James Gladstone, Jags GM, talking about the Travis Hunter trade. So Reuben Bain Jr., edge rusher out of the U. My apologies, producer Sharon, for skipping over your guys here. But this guy is a lot of fun as well. Another U guy. Bowling ball can line up anywhere from 3 technique all the way out to 9 technique. In my notes, Ray, and I said, think Ed Oliver meets Jared Verse in terms of the versatility. He's one of the best edge rushers when it comes to inside counters, plays with a low center of gravity, sort of that bowling ball mentality, and makes up for lack of elite bend with that bulldog mentality. And my comp for him, I went a little bit old school here, Frank Clark. So give me your thoughts on just what it means to be a sawed-off edge rusher as opposed to someone who's 6'5" and 265, for example.
Leverage. It's the number one thing that comes to my mind, being able to play leverage. And just in the pictures that we've shown, because he's a guy I hadn't watched yet, but he looked like a Melvin Ingram type to me.
Yep.
And Melvin Ingram was a guy that, he was sawed off, but he was crafty, knew how to rush, and you could, if you wanted to, stand him up over guards and create those two-way goals for him. So really excited to watch this guy. He's from that Miami Bain family, which there are a lot of Bains down in Miami. He comes from good bloodlines.
All right, next up, pick 11. The LA Rams get this pick via the trade with the Falcons that allowed the Falcons to come back up and get James Pierce Jr. in real life back in April. I had them taking Duke cornerback Chandler Rivers, and this another guy I was excited to watch because I didn't know anything about him, and all he did was ball out. Can play outside, can play in the slot, physical player despite his size, consistently in the right place. Reminded me a lot of Max Hairston. So I'm interested for you to get an opportunity to watch this young man as well, Ran.
They need corners. Take them.
All right, next up, New England Patriots on the clock. Xavier Chaplin, tackle out of Auburn. Really good athlete, uses his hands well, anchors well against the bull rush, consistently moves defensive ends off the spot. My comp for him, Ran, Tyler Guyton. So that gives you some indication of the type of athlete he was last season. I'm looking forward to what he's able to do this year in the SEC. All right, let's take one more quick break here, and we come back. Seattle Seahawks are on the clock. Pick 13. We'll see who they take right after this. All right, Rand, take me down to Paradise City where the grass is green and girls are pretty. All right, here we go. Pick 13. If you're listening, Rand's wearing his Guns N' Roses shirt, so I'm regaling him with what it was like to be alive in the late 80s. Pick 13. Seattle Seahawks are on the clock. LT Overton, edge rusher out of Alabama. Thick frame player, plays with violent hands, able to disengage quickly from blocks. He can ragdoll interior offensive linemen to the ground. All guys that it feels like John Schneider has been big on. And my comp for him, Rand, is Darius Smith. So what do you think about an edge rusher of that sort of frame heading to John Schneider's Seattle Seahawks?
This is a really good fit, just because the defenses are similar in what they do in Alabama and how they play those guys. And for what, Mike McDonald wants to do, like I could easily see, I don't see him standing up, per se for them. I could see him playing in that role that they have, and they call it a big end. So it's really like a 5 technique that can play some 6 technique, play some 7, a guy that can play, essentially on the edge for you, but with his hand in the dirt, and that can set physical edges and then kick him inside, in those rush situations. So this would be a really good fit for Seattle in their defense.
All right, next up, pick 14, Pittsburgh Steelers. The quarterbackless Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock here. I had them taking Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana. Last year, he played at Cal. Another fun watch. I had no idea what to expect. We don't talk a lot about Cal football. They did have Noah Williams, the cornerback, drafted in the 3rd round. But Mendoza's a pocket passer, but he's not a statue. He buys time with subtle pocket movements, which is what you want to see from a quarterback trying to get to the next level. Excels at off-platform throws, which he had to do a lot of last year at Cal, and he's a really good athlete in space. And Rand, here's what I came away with first impressions with Mendoza. He's what I thought Tyler Shuck was supposed to be when I was being sold the Tyler Shuck story, and maybe Tyler Shuck ends up being a Hall of Famer. We'll see. But I saw a lot more of that on tape from Mendoza last year at Cal than I did for Shuck last year at Louisville. So 6'5", huge arm, going to be in a new system now in the Big Ten. Mendoza's going to be a fun watch this year, and I had him going to the Steelers because of the obvious quarterback needs.
Yeah, and I'm excited to watch him. It was someone that you put on the radar, you brought on the radar for me, as we're working through it. But I'm excited to see him. And then, you think about what it takes to play quarterback in the Arthur Smith system. And it does require you to have some athleticism, some movement skills to play on the perimeter in those nakeds and rolls type situations. So I'm excited to watch him.
All right. We had two running backs, going round 1 back in April. I don't know how many we're going to have this year, but this young man is an easy right-in at this point in the conversation. Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. He was banged up for parts of last year, but when he was healthy, it was electric. I have him going to the Dallas Cowboys because they perennially seem to have needs at running back. Love plays with track speed, has high-end acceleration. He stops on a dime, redirects with a rare change of direction, all the things you're looking for in today's sort of running back. He's not one of these bigger backs. He's not Derrick Henry. My comp for him was actually Dalvin Cook. So if you think Dalvin Cook's a pretty good player, you'll probably like Jeremiah Love. I don't know if you had a chance to see him other than on Saturday's Rand, but this kid has a chance to be really special.
No, explosive, and just has gas. It can put his foot in the ground and accelerate. And him making the transition and seeing him be healthy this year is going to be the key, and seeing what he looks like, because I know what he looks like with that bulky knee brace on, which is a hard thing to kind of move laterally in. And I'm just excited to see him this season. Like you said, this guy was an easy right-in for this first round.
All right, halfway point here. The Arizona Cardinals on the clock, and had them taking Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington. And initial impressions, you get sort of Rome Odunze vibes when he just lines up because he's a bigger wide receiver. My comp for him actually ended up being Jaden Higgins, at least at this point over the summer. Huge catch radius, soft hands, surprising yak ability after the catch, and not only yak ability in terms of running through guys, but he can make guys miss in the open field. I thought he was a smooth route runner, flashes urgency out of breaks. And I'll just ask you this. Is there room in Arizona for 2 big receivers like Marvin Harrison Jr. and then someone like Denzel Boston?
It depends on their style of play and where they're going. But if you have a smaller quarterback, if you will, it gives him a bigger target to throw to, right? And it gives him a bigger target to see down the field. And so one of the things, like you just mentioned, how smooth he is, his ability to catch the ball. I'm just interested in seeing how fast he's truly going to time it, because there are guys that you see on film where you're like, he doesn't look that fast, and then you see them actually run, or you're there when they're running and you see it's like, okay, he's a lot faster than I thought he was. So he may fall into that category.
Yeah, and that's an opportunity for me to point out give us a little sneak peek into the future of the podcast shows. We're going to have Les Snead on next Monday. And one of the things that the Rams are really good at, and you know this better than anyone because you were there, Puka might have ran a 4.5 and change. Puka played fast, and Puka has continued to play fast since he's got into the league. So, don't sleep on just the 40 times because players can sometimes be faster or slower than what they do on a track by just watching them play. All right, next up, pick 17 here. Chicago Bears on the clock here. I had him taking Tyreek Sapp, the edge rusher out of Florida. Really good run defender. I love what he did against the run. Plays with leverage, low base, consistently wins with that low base, heavy hands that we like to talk about that allows him to get off blocks early and be disruptive in the backfield. As a pass rusher, he's a bull rusher type player, and he consistently claps the pocket. If you have a player like that, are you at all interested in getting him to diversify his pass rush moves because it maybe doesn't translate to the next level? Or are you okay with just letting him be the athlete that got him to where he was from college to the NFL?
No, you got to evolve. You got to evolve as a rusher because if you just have one move, I mean, these offensive linemen are way too talented for you to just have one move, unless you have the Reggie White hump move, which is something that there was no offense for that. But a guy like him, because I think he's versatile, you can move him around, play him in a bunch of different spots. So I think with Tyreek, you have to just take advantage of what he does early as he evolves and teach him counters and how to set up pass rush moves.
All right, next up, 18, the Denver Broncos are now on the clock. I had him taking linebacker C.J. Allen out of Georgia, and it feels like maybe the pendulum's swinging back towards the value that off-ball linebackers bring. Jahad Campbell went to the bottom of the first round to the Eagles. Carson Schlesinger went to the very top of the second round to the Browns. C.J. Allen is in that conversation for me. High motor, high-end athlete, excels versus the run of the pass, and he can also be a pass rusher. So I'm interested to see what he brings to the next level. And finally, I'll mention this young man before we take a break. Jason Kilgore, defensive back out of South Carolina, had him going to the Houston Texans. Again, another guy that if you want to watch someone and be excited, start with Jason Kilgore. Long-armed, long-legged, big slot who moves like a much smaller nickel, long strider in space, and a thumper and run support. Gave me some Nick Emanwari vibes. My comp for him ended up being Jeremy Chin, but better in coverage. And you think about that secondary, they had Kilgore, they had Emanwari, they had that front seven. I don't know why this team didn't win more football games, Ran.
South Carolina has traditionally done a heck of a job just in terms of being able to recruit the secondary. And you can go all the way back to the Dante Robinsons, in that time frame back in the day. They've always, no matter what their record is, they've always had guys in the secondary. And this guy's just another example of it.
Man, shout out to the 2004 draft class. Dante Robinson out of South Carolina. I love it. All right, let's take another quick break here. When we come back, we'll start with pick 20. And a little spoiler alert. Producer Sharon. Another Clemson player is about to get drafted. We'll find out right after this break. All right, Rand, pick 20. Now on the board, the Minnesota Vikings are making this pick. Avion Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. Fun fact, I'll ask you this. You know who his brother is?
A.J. Terrell.
A.J. Terrell, and you see it when you watch Avion play. Another Clemson player. I think we're up to 3 or 4 now. Bloodlines, as I mentioned, plays bigger than his listed size. You can go watch him play against Stanford's Alec Ayuminor, who was a 4th-round pick, I believe, of the Tennessee Titans. And Ayuminor is as thick and as physical as they come as a wide receiver. Consistently stays in phase. Good ball skills. Sounds a lot like his older brother, who was a 1st-round pick. And I think he has an opportunity to get even better this year. And my comp for him wasn't AJ. Maybe that would have been too easy. But I got some more Max Harrison vibes out of this player. And I think we're going to see a lot of like the Devin Witherspoon's Max Harrison comps for these physical, quote-unquote, undersized corners who get after it and play like they think they're Jalen Ramsey's size, for example.
Yeah, and then the fact that you put him with this Minnesota Vikings and this in the secondary and understanding what it takes for to play in a Brian Flores system, and he fits that. And so this was a good pick, just in terms of matching the player and the style of play with the organization. I know that wasn't what you were intending to do, but I can truly see the fit here for Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, and as I got a little bit further down the board, I did try to marry some of the team fits with the player, but not consistently. So, thank you for that input either way. All right, pick 21 here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. And here's where I'll start the conversation. This dude is a special team standout. He's not a returner. He's a tight end, but they used him a lot at Oregon last year as a quarterback on extra points. Twice he threw touchdowns on rollout plays. He also ran the fake punt from an up back position, so he provides that versatility. As a tight end, he runs extremely well. He'll run through arm tackles, and he had some big boy plays down the stretch for Oregon that I thought at the time was Terrence Ferguson, but on watching the replay, it was Sadiq. So he's going to be one of these insane athletic tight ends who can play in line, can play in the slot, and obviously offers a little special teams versatility. Kenyon Sadiq, I had him going to the Buccaneers, Ran.
Yeah, and you always get me when you start talking about special teams, right? Just because, as you're building a roster, like this is what it's about, having guys, and teams look for these body types, these bigger, longer body types that can actually run and present mismatch problems for you on special teams. And so I haven't watched his team's tape yet, but for a guy that has first-round talent as an offensive player and to be a standout on special teams, you talk about the perfect marrying between the offensive coordinator and special teams coordinator to get in the head coach and GM's ear about taking a player like this.
All right, pick 22, and this – I think Jermon McCoy, the cornerback out of Tennessee, is going to be a true junior. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure that's his situation in 2025. I have him going to the 49ers, and this is one of those picks that I married to the scheme. Physical long corner. He can play on an island by himself in man. He's also incredibly comfortable in zone looks. And I'll just say this, my comp for him was Will Johnson, but I think he has a chance to be a little faster if he does, in fact, run time speed-wise. He didn't look to be 4.4 on tape, but again, he's going into his junior year. These guys get stronger and faster as they certainly get older from age 18 to 22. But Jermon McCoy has been on my radar all summer. I was happy to watch him, and he feels like one of those long physical corners that would make sense in San Francisco and Saleh's system or somewhere like L.A. with the Rams. What are your thoughts on the physical measurables that McCoy might bring to a Robert Saleh defense?
It's perfect, and the way the scheme has evolved and, in its infancy, I'll say from our infancy in San Francisco running the defense, it was tall, long corners that had zone awareness. It was a heavy cover three. But as it evolved and when DeMeco Ryans became a coordinator, started having a need for guys that can play more man. And so you could blitz and do different things to mix up the rush package. And so having a player that's tall, that's long, because most tall, long corners are seen as less fluid and aren't easy in terms of transition and flipping hips. But when you have one that can do it, it makes it that much easier to run your total package on defense. So I know Saleh loves measurable guys, as you can see with the guys they've taken in the draft this year with him being back. This guy fits that mold for them.
Los Angeles Chargers up at pick 23 here. It's funny because once we get into the thick of the draft season, the guys have decided to return to school. I put them in one pile, and then all the other guys I haven't seen yet, I haven't seen them. So when I get a chance to watch these players over the summer, you do get a chance to be truly excited because you don't know much about them, if anything at all. And that brings me to R. Mason Thomas, the edge rusher out of Oklahoma. He's only listed at 240 unofficially, so maybe you want to see him add 10 pounds. But the way he plays, Ran, he looks like he could be 255 out there. He reminds me a little bit of Ezaraku in terms of the hair on fire approach he has to rushing the passer, but he's better against the run. He's just as explosive. He wins with speed. He can win with power, and he's all over the field. And when you go back and you start watching some of these other quarterbacks play Oklahoma, he shows up consistently. So at 240, going into perhaps his last year in college, if you're a scout coming through, do you want to see him gain 10 pounds? Or if he's dominating and he's dominating 240, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with it. If you're dominating at 240, you don't want to dip below that. However, if most of these guys have the intel going into their final season, if they're coming out, what they need to do or what part of their game they need to work on. And then you transition into January when the season's over, you're draft eligible. And now you get to actually go and train and focus on yourself and do things just for yourself to get better. And, if that doesn't work, there's always the water trick at the combine where you just drink a ton of water before you weigh in and get your weight up.
I know you remember this when Chase Claypool coming out of Notre Dame was listed as a wide receiver, and he drank like 9 pounds of water and weighed like 240 or something at the combine, and everyone was like, is he moving to tight end? And it turned out he just chugged a bunch of water before he went in there for I need a reverse water trick so I can lose 9 pounds in about 2 or 3 minutes, but I haven't found that out yet. All right, next up, pick 24, Cincinnati Bengals, and this is one of those picks where I married the player to the team need because this always seems to be a team need for the Bengals. Isaiah World, tackle out of Oregon. He is one of the biggest gets, if not the biggest get, in the transfer portal. Came from Nevada. In my notes, I put he might play with the best balance of any offensive tackle in recent memory. He's not the athlete Josh Connolly Jr. is, the first-round pick of the Commanders, but he's athletic enough, and I thought he showed really well at Nevada. There's some things he's going to have to clean up at the next level. But what are you looking for when you see a guy come from a non-Power 4 program, graduating to a Power 4 program, which is sort of what, I mean, it's not sort of, exactly what Josh Simmons did last year when he got to Ohio State?
I mean, you get all the questions answered. How are they really setting against real rushers? He's a guy that of all the guys I've seen, he's the most intriguing because, like you said, you see the physical tools that are there, but you see so many instances of things where you're like, or man, like he needs to clean this up. But it's really intriguing, especially at this tackle position. But then you're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, and they just took Shamar Stewart, a guy who has physical traits and tools that didn't always translate to production. So he's a really, really interesting kid, and I'm excited to watch him at Oregon.
All right, pick 25, the Green Bay Packers had them taking A.J. Harris out of producer Shamar's Penn State, cornerback there. And in my notes, I said he played cornerback like an in-the-box safety or a linebacker. They lined him up everywhere from outside corner to slot to Tampa 2 linebacker, run up the middle of the field to quarterback spy. So he does all those things. I'm interested to see what his season looks like in 2025 because there was a lot to love in 2024 from A.J. Harris. And look, man, Producer Sharon, you guys are running out of excuses. You got a first-round quarterback. You got some dudes on defense. Y'all got to win something. All right, let's take another quick break here so I can preach to Sharon in the break here, and we're going to come back and hit picks 26 through 32 right after this break. All right, Rand, we're up to pick 26. Washington Commanders are on the clock. I just saw a report that Scary Terry McLaurin is not happy with where his contract is. So maybe this has something to do with his future or not. He's a fantastic player, should be in Washington forever. I had him taking Aaron Anderson, wide receiver at LSU. And this comes with a caveat because there is a lot of electricity in Aaron Anderson's tape. And at times, if you squint, you saw a little bit of Tyreek and a little bit of Jaden Waddle. He just has to play a little bit more consistently. Undersized, so that brings into question whether he's a first-round talent or not. Waddle was a first-round pick. But the short area quickness is off the charts. He wins in small areas consistently, and he always is open. As I mentioned, he did have some of those focus drops, but when he was on, he was truly hard to stop. So when you're 5'10-ish and sub 190, what do you need to see from that type of player, wide receiver, to get them inside the top 32?
I mean, to start with, you got to have a blue trait. You got to have that one quality, one thing about you that just jumps off the tape that's hard to ignore. But then, like you said, you talked about the focus drops. Like, it's got to be a level of consistency, there where there's some reliable, actions in their game. But like you said, and like I mentioned earlier, going into LSU earlier in the season, and God rest his soul, you go in there, you see Kyron Lacy, but then your eyes kept jumping over to this guy as you're watching, the receiver just like, hey, wait a minute, who is this? Who is this guy? He's explosive, and you see, him dropping his weight, getting in and out of cuts. And so it was impressive to see in person.
Yeah, I mean, you probably agree first round's a little too rich right now for Anderson, but I'm also trying to project some of these guys that might have a chance to splash.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I think, and this is just being truthful and just being given a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. And we've talked about, how we're going to approach this process, after, this upcoming summer. But truthfully, of this draft class, and from what I've seen and what I've talked to scouts around the league, I don't know that there are a lot of guys currently with true first round grades, but as we both know, there will be 32 guys taken in the first round, whether you have a first round grade on them or not.
Yep.
So this guy falls in that category.
Yeah, fair enough. And that wide receiver conversation is one we'll certainly have. And I think that's the spot on take as we sit here right now. All right, next up, pick 27, Los Angeles Rams. This is sort of a marriage between player and team as well. Cade Klubnik, watched him earlier in the fall last year. And I said, okay, maybe go back to school. And then he got red hot over the second half of the season, played really well. Not the biggest quarterback in the league, but he's a good athlete, and his deep ball is as consistent as it comes. I don't know if you had an opportunity to see Klubnik outside of the Saturday viewing, Ran, but he got better each and every game last season.
Yeah, so I think you talked about his measurables. I think he came in a shade under 6'2", so 6'0", 170, if you will. I think he's right at 210. I watch the tape and I see the athletic traits and you see the things, but I just want to see him play more consistent from the pocket. And when I'm speaking about the consistency, it's not in terms of the reading of the coverage and those things, but it's just standing tall in the face of pressure and getting the ball out. There were a little too many times for me where I saw him ducking and chucking, where you want to see your quarterback stand tall, stand firm, and deliver the ball in the face of danger.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. My comp for him, just upon early viewing, was sort of Bo Nix. Bo Nix, I didn't think was going to be a first-round pick. I thought he'd be a second-round pick. That's where I am on Klubnik right now, so I have him coming in at the bottom of the first round. We shall see together. Next up, pick 28, the Detroit Lions. Keldrick Falk, edge rusher out of Auburn. Thick build. He can redirect and get to the ball like a much smaller player. And right now, I thought he's a little bit better versus the run than as a pass rusher. And again, I thought he lacked an array of pass rush moves outside of the bull rush. And he reminded me a little bit of Jordan Burch, the Steelers' first-round pick. Oh, no, excuse me. That was Derek Harmon. Jordan Burch, played outside, but I would describe both Burch and Harmon when you watch them as a slow burn. So you have to watch a little bit more of them to see what they do well. I think Keldrick Falk's his best football is ahead of him, but the way with which he plays felt like a good fit what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell look for on these big, thick edge rushers.
Yeah, just physical guys that are tone setters, and that's what they look for, and that's who they are as an organization. Just grimy, get it done, and I think he does fit that. I will say I was a much bigger Jordan Burch fan than his third round grade, just in terms of the physical tools. Just because if you master, you mix in his size, his athleticism, and again, but like Shamar Stewart didn't always equate to production. But man, there's a lot there if they can get it out of him.
All right, pick 29, the Kansas City Chiefs, and this was one of my favorite players, Suntaran Perkins, linebacker out of Ole Miss. I have him listed as a linebacker. He plays off the edge. He plays just about everywhere. He's 210 pounds, Ran. So despite his size, he won with bull rushes against offensive linemen. He would force re-anchors. He worked hard to get off blocks. He was a sideline-to-sideline, hair-on-fire guy. So if you see a 210-pound edge rusher dominating the SEC, do you have to move him inside to off ball? Can he be a DPR, a designated pass rusher? What are you doing with someone like Perkins?
You got to make that transition to off the ball. 210 pounds in our league as a full-time rusher, you will get choke slammed.
Come on, man.
But he's going to have to play off the ball.
All right. I'm going to have to rip through these last three because I've been dragging my feet here. We will get to these guys later, I promise, so don't be angry that we didn't talk about them in detail now. Eric Singleton Jr., wide receiver out of Auburn, had him going to the Buffalo Bills. Gave me a little Tank Dell vibe, so he provides that sort of athleticism inside and out. That was pick 30. Pick 31 had LSU taking Nick Anderson, wide receiver out of LSU. That wide receiver room is going to be nuts, going to the Baltimore Ravens. Pick 32. Lenore Sellers, quarterback out of South Carolina. I had the Jets trading up to get him. Eagles trading down. We'll talk quickly about Lenore Sellers here in a couple seconds here. What are your thoughts on baby Cam Newton as some of the SEC edge rushers that called him when we talked to him at the Combine?
Man, if this guy just gets the consistency of the passing game in order, he is going to be a problem.
I could not agree more because he cannot be tackled. He runs the ball, producer Sharon, like Ran Carthon ran the ball back in Florida with the ability to throw the ball down the field. He's flexing on to Sharon. All right, that's it. All 32 picks are way too early mock draft. Thank you guys for joining us. Check out With the First Pick wherever you get your podcast. Scan that UR code. We will see you guys later.